And we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, if you could do the roll call. Sue?
Ellen Snyder.
Here.
Ellen Sharple. Here. Sam Kenny. Here. David Bell. Here. Jeff Goldnoff.
Present.
And I know Chris and Julie and Colin can't make it, so. But we do have a quorum and we don't have any alternates, so we're good to go. Okay, next is public comment. I know we have a few people in the audience. Does anybody want to, Tom, do you want to just come say hi and who you are?
I guess.
Sorry, you have to come to the speaker, sorry.
I have nothing to tell you all. I'm just an observer tonight, but my name's Tom Jones, and I just recently retired and moved to Newmarket from Milford. And for the last 8 years, I was with the Piscataquag Land Conservancy. Out of New Boston, I was the land protection specialist. And almost all of our projects were done in partnership with conservation commissions. And now I would like to contribute my volunteer services to your commission if you all have a need. But I'm here in Newmarket and glad to be here.
Great, welcome. Thank you, Tom. It's nice to meet you, and I'm sure we'll definitely enjoy your volunteer services. So we look forward to having you join us at some point.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else here out in the world? Okay. Well, let's move on. We have a guest speaker tonight. It's Kimberly Arlen from the Nature Conservancy, and she's going to talk about community oyster gardening in Newmarket. So welcome, and if you want to be up there, and we have some slides.
Sure thing. Yeah, let me just play with the settings on here. Does anyone know how I can get it to, so you all don't need to look at my notes?
We can get our crew in the back.
That is all good as well. I can always just do this. Oh. So sorry here. Oh wait, actually that looks good.
No, that's fine.
Amazing. Okay.
A little glitchy.
Couple technical difficulties. So hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm so glad to be here. My name is Kim Arlen. I'm the Habitat Restoration Coordinator for the Nature Conservancy in New Hampshire. So I work on the marine team, mostly working on oyster reef restoration and community engagement across the Great Bay. And today I'm here to talk to you about a project that combines both of those things. So I'll get into the details of how the program works in just a minute, but I first wanted to go over just the overall goals of the program. So they are to build a community of people who advocate and act for the protection of Great Bay, and would like to do this through both environmental education and hands-on experiences. And our second goal is to support and restore a network of oyster reefs for ecological resilience. So historically, Great Bay was filled with tons of oysters in the water. However, over the past few decades, due to pollution, disease, overharvesting, climate change, you name it, we lost about 90% of our oysters, which is a big impact. Oysters filter the water, they remove nitrogen from the system, and also provide habitat for lots of species within the bay. So in 2009, the Nature Conservancy partnered with UNH to start restoring the oysters and start doing work to try to get them back. And one of the ways we do this is with our Oyster Conservationist Program, or our OC program, which is a community science program where volunteers receive a cage filled with baby oysters to raise over the summer. So we engage about 300 people across the seacoast every year, and it's a wonderful method to teach people about oysters, as well as their importance to the bay, and collect extra data on their growth and survival. So typically how the program works is that we buy oyster larvae from a hatchery in late June, early July, and we settle them and grow them on recycled shells in large tanks. And then after about 2 weeks, once they're visible on the shells, we separate them into small cages that are about 2 feet wide by a foot deep. And then we work with volunteers to count them all up. So we have big volunteer baby oyster counting events where everyone can come down to the lab at the UNH lab in Durham and help us count oysters. So it's a ton of work. I mean, I think last summer we counted about 36,000 oysters. Yes, so we get a lot of them. And then we deliver those cages to our volunteers across the estuary who raise them for us. They take measurements throughout the summer, so we get that community engagement piece and then also that scientific value of if they're growing, how fast they're growing, if they're surviving and thriving in a certain area in the bay, if there are any predators to look out for. We have so much value there. So usually our volunteers are people with private docks or moorings sometimes, some type of water access, and you can imagine that is a fairly limited clientele. So our goal with the Community Oyster Garden, which is what I'm proposing for Newmarket, is to increase accessibility to the program by being open to the public. So community oyster gardens are oyster cages over the summer hosted by towns, where anyone can come down, have a hands-on experience with the oysters, learn about their importance to the bay, and collect some scientific data for us. We would also host workshops throughout the summer where myself or my colleague Brianna Group, who's the Great Bay Program Manager that works with me, could do environmental education type lessons, lead activities with community members. And I think one of the great things about this project is that engages both kids and adults and teenagers. We typically get a lot of interest from all age groups, and it really can bring people together. So that's always very exciting. Okay, and then at the end of the summer, so once we're done, usually late September, early October, we collect all the cages and then we release the oysters to our restoration sites within Great Bay. So this is a closure site, so no one can harvest them. And we release them there while they'll continue growing and filtering the water. And we do still have a really great partnership with people at UNH, Ray Grizzle and Kristen Ward, who can monitor them for us throughout the summer, so we'll know how they're doing for years to come, and if they're helping out the wild oyster populations as well. So, oh goodness, there we go. So just a bit about the logistics of the Oyster Conservationist Program. So towns typically host 4 cages. Last summer we had a community oyster cage in both Durham and Dover. So typically it's around 4 cages. And we'll take care of them by cleaning the oysters, counting the oysters during our volunteer events. We also encourage community members to come down and visit the garden at any time, so you don't need to wait for a workshop. You can come and visit them whenever. Clean them, count them, take some data for us. So this also means that there is no maintenance that the town needs to do for them. We provide all the materials, so the Nature Conservancy provides the oysters themselves, the cages, the ropes, the calipers we use to measure them, the brushes, all of the materials come to us. If you want any signage as well, we're happy to work with you on that of what type of sign you want, and usually we can find some money from a grant to pay for that as well. And there's no permanent infrastructure needed. So at the Community Oyster Garden in Durham, there is a pulley system there. We partnered with an Eagle Scout who created a pulley system for us for his senior Eagle Scout project, which was really wonderful, and he did a really wonderful job with that. That further increases accessibility just because it's easier to pull up the ropes for people. But it's not necessary, and would suggest just having a pilot year with no infrastructure or any permanent fixture needed. All we need for it is a fence by the water that we can hang our oyster cages in using ropes. Would like a site with that typically get some foot traffic, so people are already going there. So for instance, in Durham, the garden is in the Durham Town Landing, and in Dover, it is by Henry Law Park. When we talked to Bart McDonough, we had thought of maybe Shonda Park, but we are completely open to any suggestions you have or what the town thinks might suit the project best. Totally open, not married to any one idea. And so lastly, we just have a couple pictures so you can see the first picture is the Durham Oyster Garden with the pulley system in the background, and we have a sign on just the importance of oysters in the Great Bay and their history. Sure. The third picture is the oysters hanging off a fence near Henry Law Park. That is our Dover Oyster Garden. And then the last picture are the Eagle Scouts that built the pulley system for us that we have the designs for as well. So that is all I have. My contact information is there, as well as the Nature Conservancy website if you have any curiosities about what they're up to in New Hampshire.
So can you say a little bit more about, like, how would a summer go? Like, okay, so you're putting the cages in, and then you're, from the town, you're just looking for the actual site, and then you host events, and then we invite other people? in the
Yeah,
town?
that is correct. So we would put the oyster cages in probably sometime in July, handle the maintenance for them, do any type of workshops, and we're happy to collaborate with you all as well on like engagement strategies, how you think would be best to get people there to get the word out on the project. Over the winter, we'll be creating some engagement plans. And then, yeah, we'll take the cages back at the end of the summer.
And you need like a fence. Is that kind of the structure you need?
Yeah,
on
a
the shoreline?
fence is good. I'm sure we could, get clever with any other kind of setup. That's what we've used in the past. We just need something to, tie the cages to using a rope, but it can be any length. So something that's close to the water that we can tie the cages to.
And that the public can come up to and see.
That is correct, yes.
Any thoughts about, it seems like a great idea. I'm just wondering, Sam, you have any thoughts about the riverfront?
It seems like something that would promote bringing people down to the riverfront,
Yeah.
which seems to be a kind of a core objective of the town right now. Trying to think about placement.
I know, I was thinking, because Shanda, we don't really have a fence at Shanda.
I was almost thinking like
Fence on the Riverwalk.
yeah.
On the Riverwalk,
There's that
exactly.
on the Riverwalk.
I know.
Except there's all the
Gotta cut through the
roses.
Yeah. Have you walked the riverfront in Newmarket? Do you
I have,
some-
yes.
Okay, so we have the Riverwalk
Mm-hmm.
behind all the condos and apartments, and
Sure,
then
yeah.
you come to the landing, and then there's Shanda Park. So the Riverwalk is where there's a fence,
Oh, I
but
see.
there's
yeah.
like all this, there's roses. Shanda Park, I don't think, we don't have a
What
fence.
about that dock that's on the other side?
Yeah, the other side, you go across the Moonlight Brook.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dock maybe.
Even just like if there's a pin in a rock with a ring on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
I
gonna
don't know
say
if there's something like
like
that by
a
the
screw hook or even a wooden stake would work too. It doesn't need to be a fence, just something that won't move that I can tie a rope to.
I'm wondering where the weir is, where he stores the weir, over in that, is that what you mean, over in that area?
But yeah,
People
Past
sink a
the
post.
weir.
Past the weir.
Pretty much.
You could just sink a single post in the ground. and
Yeah.
they could-
Yeah. Yeah, anybody with
Take a look.
thoughts on,
I think it's a great idea.
I think it's a great idea. It sounds like a great program.
yeah,
Above low tide. Below low tide, I mean?
It does not. So it needs to be in water for most of the day, but oysters can handle being out of the water at low tide for a couple hours a day. That's not a problem.
I'm just thinking of how far
it gets low.
How far out? Yeah.
you want to be away from a dock, I would assume, so you don't want a boat.
No, I mean, yeah,
Sitting
no,
at or-
boats are typically not a problem as long as, I wouldn't want the cages to be in the way of any boats.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of our volunteers keep them on docks that they have
That's
boats
true.
on. So that's not an issue.
well, it seems like we're interested. I think plenty of time to actually find the actual location.
Yeah, I
and
was going to
set
say,
it
there's
up,
lots of time
so-
to plan.
Yeah. So, yeah, it sounds like we're on board.
Okay, excellent news.
That's great.
Yeah. So we can just stay in touch and let us know what else you might need from us. And
Okay, perfect.
do you want? Sorry.
I have a question about
Yes.
the information board.
Yep.
That's something that you could provide, or we could do something with, or should we provide that?
It's very open. So that board was specifically sponsored by one of the grants that we had, which we're likely to get again next year. So it is fairly open. If the town, obviously wants to provide a sign, we're very happy to work with you for that. So that's something that we can collaborate on when the time comes. But I don't really have an estimate as to what grants we'll have and not have in the year of 2023. That should all be coming through this winter, and we'll have more details on that at that time.
Does Dover have a sign?
Dover had so we did temporary signs for both Durham and Dover. That was just printed at Staples, to be totally honest. So we can look at doing that as well.
And is this are you still doing it in Durham and Dover? Is it a 1-year thing, or what's the?
Yep, so it's still in Durham and Dover, so it's only seasonal. So the Dover Oyster Garden we've had since 2019, and then this past summer was the first summer with Dover.
Okay, so the plan is to keep doing it every year. Okay.
Yeah, that is correct.
I think this sounds cool.
How has the success been? I know years ago we worked with TNC to, I think we gave them money to help place shells out in the bay and
Oh,
places.
yeah.
And I know Ray Grizel's been to the commission multiple times to talk
Yes.
about it. And how has that been working out?
Yeah, I mean, it's been doing fairly well so far. We don't do the monitoring ourselves, that's UNA's jobs, but from the results that I've seen, it's pretty encouraging. So we've seen a lot of wild recruitment on the reefs where that we've put out oysters, which is really exciting. And we found some, baby oysters are called spat, so excuse me, we found some spat on a oyster reef that was considered dead. So the results have been encouraging so far.
What's the closest reef to, like, downtown Newmarket? Do you know?
Gosh,
They went off Shackford?
what's that?
Did they do one off Shackford Point, I thought? Because
Shackford
they
Point.
came to us for a dredge and fill one time to dump shells.
Oh, interesting. I'm not sure about that. The two restoration sites that we're currently working with right now are off of Nanny Island and Woodman Point, so they're fairly close together.
Yeah, that one I thought was off past the mouth of the lamprey, I thought.
I do think there is a wild reef near the mouth of the lamprey, but I'm not totally certain on that one.
And does anybody else in Durham are they doing any raising on their own, on private docks in Newmarket? Do you know?
They are, yes. We have 5 volunteers
Out of
in
Moody
Newmarket.
Point or out?
Yep, we have 1 on Moody Point and then a couple on the lamprey.
Okay, nice. Great, okay, well, thank you, and
Awesome.
we'll be in touch and look forward to it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Kim.
Okay.
Okay, let's see, moving on to minutes. Thank you, Sue. I know you weren't at the meeting, so they're not the easiest to do,
Well,
but you always do a good job. I did have,
too many people mumble.
yeah, okay, let's see. October, let's do the September ones first. I think I had, one, couple things on September. I think these are September. The weird thing is, hold on. I feel like they're out of order. October. Well, let's see. My pages seem to be out of order. Sorry about that. Emma was in September, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Second page.
Yep.
Under Emma, sort of partway, line, you get them all lined. Line 16, where it says this property is also referred to as the Quox.
Oh.
That whole sentence you could strike. We kind of
Okay.
got confused. It was kind of my fault on the mapping. So you could just strike that in parentheses. I think the rest is fine on there.
I think I went to the Arlon site and that's what they referred to it as,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, that's what we can. And down below in the table, Nostrum, no big deal. It says it's an O, not a U. Nostrum Farm,
Oh,
I believe.
an O, not a U, Nostrum.
Yeah.
Nostrum.
Yep.
Okay, I think I must have corrected that after.
Let's see, that was. Page 3, under land stewardship, line 24. The boat launch is in disrepair. The boat launch may need improvement.
Oh,
Would be probably better because it's actually functioning fine. Okay,
I don't even want to say who said it was in disrepair.
could have been me.
No, no.
Okay, anybody else have any for the September minutes? Motion to approve as amended. I'll make that motion. A second? David, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay. All right. October minutes, I had two changes. On page 4, line 14, where it says a starting balance of 5,000, I think that should be 75,000.
Oh.
That's a CIP, right? Sam, was 75,000 for Shanda Park?
Yes, that was the
Yeah.
amount that was recommended.
Right. And then, it's not really critical, but on line 15 below, it says the committee will work with DPW to resolve the culvert replacement. I think it was to gather more information.
Okay.
Right? For the Moonlight
I
Brook
wasn't
stuff?
there in October, but
Yeah, but that was what the CIP,
that was the
the intent of that conversation.
Yeah, additional conversation
Right.
made with DPW.
I think it ultimately went to, it was being moved to the MS4 program.
Yeah, so it was more just more information. And then on page 5, line 28, natural resource inventory, instead of saying the little park properties, it should be the Falls Brook region. Okay. Any other changes? Motion to approve as amended. I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
I'll abstain,
Abstains.
because I was in New York.
Okay. Finance report. All right, the general fund budget balance is $3,139.38. Nothing exceptional there to report. The conservation fund balance, total balance is $133,998.01, portion of which is the Shanda Park Fund. Again, nothing really new there.
Have the funds been for Tucker, our contribution for Tucker, been expended yet? Or is that
Yes.
still in that
No,
amount?
no, that's all. So this is pretty good balance. We have a few outstanding but minor expenses, so that's our total, yeah. We did get a slug of the current use money this summer, so that added 45,000, so that helped our balance. Okay. Any questions on the finances? We have some, we're going to get down to land stewardship. We have some funding requests we'll talk about there. Okay, committee board reports. Planning board, Tom, I thought Bart was going to be here, but how about you?
Planned on coming?
Jeff?
Yeah, so I guess we discussed two topics that are not really of interest, and then we got into the ADU discussion. We did touch on briefly on the Conservation Commission letter. It was not read into the record, but I believe it was entered into the
Okay.
record.
You did get a copy in your
I
packet.
did, and I'm going to append it as.
Okay, great.
As
Thank
part
you.
of the record.
Mhm.
And so, what everyone agreed on, though, was to strike the portion of the proposed language of adding accessory dwelling units to the section of the Wetland Protection Overlay District, and then revisiting that section in its entirety as to whether or not we, as the commission stated, should people be allowed to continue to expand further into nonconformity towards wetlands. So the board agreed to take that issue up
Okay.
and look towards striking that from the town zoning ordinance, so people will not be able to expand
Okay,
further.
good. Mhm.
So we'll discuss that at a future date. So we did not add accessory dwelling. It would have been only for attached accessory dwelling units, so we did not. We took that out of the proposed language.
Okay,
So that's a good thing. So
Good.
took the recommendation there.
very good.
Open space standards, we struck the open space portion of this. We didn't spend a lot of time discussing it, but one thing we did talk about is increasing the preserved pervious surface within the lot. So there was a open space requirement with a pervious surface requirement to be preserved on the parcel based on the size of the parcel. So this is of interest of the Conservation Commission, I believe, and it was so it was like you need to keep 35% pervious if the lot is under 10,000 square feet, and then it dropped all the way down to 10% when you got up to 50,000 square feet or more, and it was decided to keep it at 35% minimum pervious, no matter how big it is. So which is another positive, again, for conservation purposes, at least for runoff and especially in urbanized areas. The other.
Can you just explain, I didn't bring my copy of, what does that mean by striking the open space provisions? What did that take away from the requirement? Besides changing the pervious?
It was basic, that we didn't talk about much.
It was slightly, remember we had that conversation, it was slightly vague because it was how are they gonna make sure that there's garden, that
Yeah,
there's green space?
green space, yeah, how are they gonna do that? So they're like, we probably can't, but we'll work with the pervious, because they're similar, right? So whether it's a garden or grass or whatever it happens to be, as long as it's a pervious surface, kind of meeting the goal of the open space. So if you say 35% of it must remain pervious, so you're saying 35% of it essentially needs to be open space.
Okay.
So that was kind of seen as the reason to just move past it. We did keep in the 100 square foot bonus if you do put solar on a detached ADU. So that's a conservation bonus there, I think.
Wasn't the stormwater management in the open space part too? Is that still there?
The stormwater management portion stayed,
Okay.
because that was separate.
Okay.
So
And we had commented about how there's going to be some sort of inspection or check by the building inspector.
Yeah, so the discussion went that so you need to get a building permit to do this, and we had some discussion about, none of this is still didn't vote to pass it yet, we just made it through it. So I'm thinking about it for 1 second, a good way to put it. So sorry, caught me off guard there for a second when you asked that question.
Sorry, got you out of order.
I
Keep
don't-
going. Do whatever you need to do.
I was thinking about that for a second there. What was the question again?
Well, we had in our notes about there needed to be some annual inspection if
Yes,
there were these
sorry,
various
Sorry,
components.
that was it, my bad.
Yeah, that's right.
So there will be a registration process. So to do this, you've got to fill out a form, and if it's going to be detached or even if it's an attached expansion of an existing building, you're going to need to get a building permit. And so to get the building, when they go through the building permit process, is when it would be checked for like the pervious surface requirement. And the idea is that each year you're going to need to fill the form out and re-present it to the town, and that you're continuing to do it. That will ensure that the owner of the property, which is required, the owner lives on the lot, so it's going to prove that. And then there's also going to be a statement that you have not surpassed the threshold of the 35% pervious. So initially, I guess if it's an expanded interior, I don't know that we didn't really touch on what would happen. If they cut off 1,000 square feet within an existing house, would the building inspector go out and look around the parcel and ensure there was 35%? But if they're going to put an addition on, they're going to have to get a building permit and show a sketch that shows like, hey, we don't meet, or we do meet, I mean. And same thing for a detached. And so you're kind of stating every year that you still meet these requirements, and it can be inspected at any time. But just like anything in town, who inspects the wetlands in anyone's yard every year physically goes out and looks. So it's kind of an honor system, or somebody sees it or neighbor sees it. So that's kind of how it'll be kind of checked on a yearly basis, that people are maintaining it.
What would be the outcome if they weren't?
Yeah, that was a discussion we were having too. It would be a zoning violation.
Every year? Or like a one-shot?
Well, we didn't.
You know, I mean.
I do not know what the follow-through is on a zoning violation.
Yeah.
I believe you have to cease and desist the use, but I'm not positive. So like, if you were in violation of zoning, I don't know if you'd have the permit revoked to have an ADU.
It could go that far, but
Yeah.
most.
So that's, we didn't actually talk about what the actual, beyond the fact that it would be a zoning violation,
It
that
would
it
be a zoning violation, and then they would have to go
through the process.
through the process of an administrative appeal to the zoning board.
Yeah, but what the
The real outcome is.
we did not touch on that, and I'm not sure. My presumption would be that you wouldn't.
The yearly thing you have to put in, your application certification, is if you get that extra 100 feet for putting solar panels on the detached or attached ADU, then you have to verify that every
Yeah.
year that that's
Yeah, and any portion anything that's like, you must do this is supposed to be on the recertification, because that was brought up by the chair of the of the board, of the planning board, like, what if I just put them on there and then put them back on my house? Now I've got an 1,100 square foot ADU and I've a DADU, and like, I moved the panels back over. So that would be part of the recertification, and yes, we did discuss that as an administrative burden on the town, but so be it. And it was pretty strongly felt by all members on the planning board except myself that we would go to 2 ADUs. The ability for someone to put 2 accessory dwelling units on a parcel, the limit, the consensus of the board the other night was that it would just be 1 allowed through ordinance. So, but you would be allowed to do detached, attached.
So the consensus was for 1 or for 2?
For 1. Okay. Yeah, I was the outlier of the board members present, and I think probably we know one of the other board members was definitely against 2 that wasn't present. So I mean, it's probably like 7 to 1 essentially. So, but yeah, so 1. We had a lot of talk about driveways. I don't know if how the board feels about driveways. Whether or not
No new curb cut, right?
Well, the curb cut thing was something that I kind of offered a counterpoint to, because my question, and I don't know the answer, and Bart was going to look into it, was, is there a restriction currently on how many curb cuts someone can have on their property? And if they put an ADU on their property, how could that all of a sudden restrict you from having a second curb cut? Like if I can have 3 on my property right now, but I put an ADU on there, and now I can only have the one that I currently have, that seems unfair. So I think that's something we'll end up touching on next month when we have more information to discuss. But it goes along with the pervious surface requirement as well. So you do need the land to make it happen, or you do need to try to get relief from zoning. There was a special use permit thing, and I don't remember if it was that or something else.
Was it to exceed 2 cars? I don't think so.
Oh, it was to
Still a
build,
max.
okay, it was to put, yeah, it might not be of that much interest to the commission. It was to be able to put driveways or parking within lot setbacks. And the board's consensus seemed to be that it would be through a special use permit instead of a zoning issue.
Thank you, that's great. What's the time frame on this whole process you sent to them?
I don't think I have a solid answer for you on that one. I know that next month, so there were all these changes throughout. We did go back to the earlier parts that we had talked about.
So will there be a new
And
draft at your next meeting?
So
or-
the next meeting is going to be kind of a consolidated, hopefully nearly final draft.
Can maybe you send that to us before our next meeting, just in case?
As soon as Bart sends it out.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll caution, sometimes it's close to
Yeah,
planning board
that's
meeting.
fine. I think the group would probably like to see the next version.
So I may not have it super early.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Any other questions for Bart on that? Thank you, or sorry, Bart,
Yeah.
Jeff?
The other thing
Thank
that
you.
might be of interest is the 90-day occupancy period instead of 30 consecutive days. So you're not allowed to rent it for less than 90 days.
Mhm.
A lot of discussion about bedrooms as well, bedrooms and occupants,
Mhm.
which can have a septic system. So obviously,
Yeah.
if you're on a septic system, you're not allowed to exceed the capacity of the septic system,
Yeah.
and that has to be proved out when you get the building permit to make the improvements and add the bathroom and the bedrooms and
Yeah.
whatnot. Municipal, there really isn't that much of a provision to that. The max bedrooms they're trying to get at 2. But everyone, I don't know. To me, it's like you got 2 bedrooms. How many people can you put in there? You can't really limit the number of people if they're familial, I guess. So there's kind of discussion about that.
Yeah.
But
Well, they won't be easy to build, so it's complicated.
Yeah,
The hope is that you will use existing structures
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
do this. That was the hope, to actually use something that you might not be using.
Right.
otherwise.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Detached garage.
We tried to make it easier, and that's one thing I advocated for as well, is to make it easier to use as a second use of a structure. Like, there were restrictions on where, you know, if it was closer to the road by, you know, had to be so far, like, well, what if someone builds a garage well out in front of the house, you know, or their house is way back and there's a barn near the road, why can't they put an accessory dwelling unit in the upper floor of it if it's only 40 feet from the road? And why does it have to be 80 feet from the road, you know? And so we have made provisions to allow for secondary use in pretty much any other structure on the property.
Yeah,
So
we
it
had
can't
a-
exceed 1,100
We had a neighbor years ago who, they have that exact situation. Their house is back, there's a garage already closer to the main road. And they wanted to put their in-law apartment there, and they weren't allowed to because it's detached, so.
Yeah,
just
so
wouldn't
now,
allow that.
yeah, so now you'd be, that, the goal is to allow that, yeah. And I used myself as an example. I do not plan on doing an ADU, so I wasn't trying to make zoning for myself. Like, my garage is closer than 80 feet to the road, and I think my house is about 100 feet from the road, so I'm like, why wouldn't I be able to use that? It's like, it doesn't look like a separate house that someone lives in. It still looks like a garage, but I could put something upstairs, you know. And I'm sure there are tons of situations, like, who puts the garage 80 feet from the road if their house is only 100 feet from the road, you know? If you got a 24-foot garage, it's partially behind your house now. If it's detached, it's like, didn't make a lot of sense. But that reuse of structures is,
Okay. All right. Anything else on the planning board side?
I don't think so.
Yep. Great. Thank you. It doesn't necessarily fit here, but we have a new town engineer, Lindsay. Does anybody know? Butler. Yeah, so we didn't have a town engineer before, and Bart has arranged, we're going to go out and look at the Ash Swamp Culvert that's right near Jeff's property, the one that we've been concerned about, that the turtles are getting killed on, and she helped design the Lumberland Creek culvert, which is awesome. So welcome, Lindsay, wherever you are out there. So we're going next week. Right?
Yes, yeah.
So if anybody else wants to
Yeah,
Next
join.
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Tuesday at 9.
I believe so.
Yeah, we're
Or
going to meet at
9.
Jeff's driveway.
Don't have a quorum.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, we're announcing it, so I guess we can, right? If we announce it, we're allowed to have a call.
Oh, it's a public meeting.
Oh,
So-
public meeting then.
There's not room in my driveway.
Yeah, all right.
Public.
We only have 3 people. We only have 3. That's not a
Just so you
quorum.
know.
Are you?
I'll
We
be
have
in
3.
Manchester.
All right. All right. Riverfront Advisory. Sam?
Your plug of Lindsay Butler is well timed. We met about 3 weeks ago, and it was largely in kind of getting her up to speed on some of the work that's been done so far. I just had the pleasure of working with her prior to her stop coming here, so I already kind of knew her professionally. She is a good get for the town. So it was mostly just discussing the projects at Shanda Park and the Moonlight Brook culvert, kind of getting her up to speed and starting to enlist her services for the overall projects. Outside of that, I'm not sure there has been any major significant change. Our next meeting is actually Monday, at which time I'm kind of hoping to hear a little bit more of the outcome of the CIP process. As I think a week or two ago, you know, the budget committee is largely done at this point, and there's now kind of discussions within the town about what's making it out. So I'd like to see at that point if you know, Shanda Park remains as a proposed project, and if we had any success in kind of fishing Moonlight Brook out and back into general MS4 compliance or culvert maintenance through Public Works. So potentially a little bit more to talk about come December than right now.
Okay. Great. Just since you mentioned the budget, I should have mentioned earlier, Bart said we did request a little bit more from the general fund for this next budget season, and he said it has gone past these stages, so it'll be in that same, hopefully it'll keep going forward. So we have support so far, which is great. Town council, Colin couldn't make it tonight. I don't have any other updates from the council. Energy and Environment Committee, Julie also couldn't make it tonight, and she's our rep. And she just joined, but she says there's a lot going on, and I think they had a forum last night, was it?
And it's up on,
Okay, on the community power, right?
yeah, it's up actually on our Facebook page. Tim posted it.
There you go.
Great. All right. Any other committee board reports, questions? Okay. Easement monitoring. I know Julie and Jeff, you did the Bald Hill Reservation for the Southeast Land Trust property. I have that report, and I'll send it to CELT. Sounds like there were a few issues that CELT's aware of as well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. We walked the boundary, the full boundary. We found all the monumentation. We found that the lines that didn't have, the portions of the property boundary that didn't have physical evidence, such as a stone wall or a barbed wire fence, didn't have any tags on it anywhere at all around there. And so it would be pretty easy for someone to if they weren't really looking to see where their boundaries were, kind of wander in there and do some things that they really shouldn't be up to. But we did recover all the monuments that out there, and attempted to put, we put tags where we were able to. I didn't want to overextend necessarily and put a tag somewhere we shouldn't, but we got most of it. We got tags on most of it anyway, if not all of it, 50 to 100 feet apart. In the area where the issue is, we didn't put any. There was nothing to put them on.
They had cut some trees. My butter had cut some trees.
Yeah, a number of them. And then what else was going on out there? One thing that two neighbors came out and spoke to us about was the fact that there's not like a marked trail system out there, but there's like stairs leading up to the woods.
To nowhere, stairs to nowhere.
Yeah, so people go up there and they kind of end up wandering around and then in people's backyards. And in the way that it's the last couple houses are, is that the land around them is quite high above their houses. So if you wandered to the back of the house, you're essentially like looking in the second floor windows, like you're at eye level with the second floor. Which when we walked the boundary, that's where we were at eye level with the second floor. So it could be a little unnerving. So it would be great if a marked trail out there.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I would say.
I'll
But
put
it's
that.
a really nice piece of property. I haven't walked it before. There was timber harvest on two sides that respected the boundary, and their forester put a lot of spray paint on some trees and stone wall portions, which I personally haven't seen before.
They sprayed the stone wall.
A couple of spots, yeah. Like a yellow, an orange mark on the side of the wall. So I think as their cutters came towards it, they would see it. Yeah, which I haven't seen, but previously. So, but they did respect the boundary on these two sides, which is a good thing. So.
Yeah, that was the Mitchell property to the north, to the harvest.
Yeah, one to the west, I think.
Maybe.
Unless it wraps around, actually.
It might wrap around a little bit.
Yeah, it was that odd point on the north side of the hill, both boundaries leading up to that point. It was long.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, that's good.
And they did, so I wasn't sure how the commission does that, but I know that's not typically a public discussion.
Yeah,
But we did communicate some back and forth. I haven't seen the report.
Yeah, I'll send it on to CELT, and Julie indicated that CELT had also been out there to see some of the same things, so.
Yes, they went out. It's interesting. They went out the day before the Wednesday before we did. I don't know if they had been out in a while, but they went out. They went out like we emailed them, and they're like, "Funny, we're going out tomorrow." So they went out, and then we went out, and I didn't. Julie did the report, and I haven't, like I said, I haven't seen it. But I think she passed along a draft to them, and they went out like the next.
Yeah.
They went out on Monday, I think.
Yeah, they have 2 new staff, and they didn't have staff for quite a while, so they're just getting up to speed on their properties.
Yeah.
Great. Well,
They were
thanks.
thankful that we found the boundary markers.
Oh, yeah, I'm
Some
sure.
of them are difficult to find.
Oh.
Yeah,
No, that's good.
The leaves were like this deep. Luckily, I brought a metal detector.
The
so I was
leaves are
able to-
really, all the
We
leaves
have
have
to get
fallen.
on the
Yeah.
calendar for the farm too.
You're gonna do nostrum?
Yep.
Anybody else done theirs yet? Haven't done anything yet.
Hmm.
Easement monitoring, you haven't done your easement monitoring yet? No.
It's funny. We were looking at a tree to put a tag on, and and it was a gnarly maple that had barbed wire through it, and I put my hand on it, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is really cool looking, and there was a hole, and there was a mouse staring at me. I was like, oh my goodness, I almost put my hand
Sorry.
like on the mouse. Let's use it, put a tag in a different tree. And
That's the fun stuff when you go out and monitor. Get to see. Great. All right, well, we'll catch up on everybody probably next month on the reports.
Are you going to post the reports?
No, we don't, because most of these are private. Usually you don't post monitoring reports. Yeah, and if it's something this is cell property, so it's not, and we haven't mentioned any abutters, but we don't typically talk about violations in public. It's
Yeah.
more have a conversation in private, but
mention location.
yeah,
Names.
so.
Is that their present?
Okay, all right, land stewardship and conservation. We had a few things related to Piscassica Rural Izell Conservation Area. We had our work day, that was before, or after our last meeting, I think, right? Yeah, so David was there, and Melissa, and Julie, her partner, and some UNH students. And we did some trail work, and we installed 2 signposts out on the trail, and we cleaned out the bluebird boxes. Yeah.
Pretty successful day.
Yeah, it was very successful. And we shored up, the footbridge is the native timbers, but they're falling apart a bit, but we shored them up a little bit. So they're at least somewhat, they're pretty passable, but we have a few more things that we wanted to ask you about. One is the signposts are meant to have now these 18 by 24-inch signs like we did at Wigan Farm. This would be the trail map and a little bit of, do's and don'ts. So one would be at each of the trail junctions at each end of in the woods. And I've done a draft design which I can share via email. I don't have it ready tonight, but they cost has gone up for printing signs. So these are, the only quote I got was from Portsmouth Sign, which is what we've always been using, and they're for $250. I think almost $250. I think I added a little bit, so they're over $100 a piece. They used to be like 60. Those ones we did for Wigan were 60 a piece, so they've gone up a lot. So I might try to get another quote, but I suspect the price of aluminum's gone up, but maybe it'll come down with prices maybe coming down a little bit. So we can either, if you'd be willing to approve up to $250 tonight to get 2 signs made, or we could wait till next month if you want me to get another quote.
The sign's gonna have maps on.
Going to have the trail map and say you are here.
Oh,
Yeah.
Excellent. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're pretty. That's why they're pretty big. So there'll be the trail map and then a little bit of do's and don'ts, because not everybody reads the kiosk. So, and we're including. The map I had made earlier, but it'll have the Audubon property too.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So we want to make sure we're telling people that that's Audubon property and it's a great trail, but respect the private property and Audubon property.
That's where the location of the inner sign is right at the fork.
Yeah, pretty close to the Audubon property.
We should have put one in when we put that trail in.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, there's some issues out there we have to deal with a little bit later, but, well,
I would make a motion to approve up to $250. I know the Wigan ones are cheaper, but that's got to be pushing 2 years ago at this point.
Yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
anything's gotten cheaper in 2
I'll
years.
second that.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great, thank you. All right, I'll send around a draft and people can maybe comment on that. Let's talk about the entrance sign. I apologize, I had drafted well, Melissa's been researching this, so I'll pass this around. You can talk about it, Melissa, since that was your research.
Sure. We have gotten a couple of different versions of basically the same sign drawn up. 2 feet by 6 feet. Basically the state has nixed the idea of putting it out close to the road. since it's in the right of way. So we've realized that there is a spot close to the parking lot, basically up against the shrubbery, that is perfectly visible from the street. So having a bit of a larger sign there would do the trick. Thank you for the contacts at Timberline Sign. I've been going back and forth with them. It's looking like the sign and posts are going to be upwards of between $1,750 and $1,800. There's two different versions of the sign. One just has a little bit bigger crest on the top, but the design of it is consistent with everything that we've had going so far. Shopmeyer, Heron Point. I think Shanda. Is there something down at Shanda that's consistent with that?
I don't know if I've seen one now.
I can send that to you, Sue.
Is
I
it-
love the scribble stuff.
That's what it looks like all the other ones.
So between two granite posts or something?
It's,
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little bigger than like the one at Shopmeyer.
Oh,
Because you
definitely.
can't put it.
No.
'Cause you
No,
gotta
this
put
is
it sideways.
no. It's big.
Yeah,
It's
it's
about the size of
2
this
by
table.
6, yeah.
because you'd be looking from the road as you drive, you'd see it to be like
Right.
right
Yeah.
there.
Mostly because you can't have it perpendicular.
Yeah,
So you make it
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
27 inches by 72 inches. And $1,845, and then the posts, if we did two 4x4 posts, they make them 96 inches tall. That's really long. They quoted it 125 for two posts.
125.
Yep.
Each or total?
Total, I think, right?
Yep.
So yeah, it would be
So this,
yeah, it'd be $2,000.
yeah,
pretty much.
basically. So the smaller of the two signs on its own, 1752. The larger of the two signs on its own, 1845. And then the 4x4 option for the posts would be 125 total cost.
So almost 2,000 for
Yep.
together. And then we'd have to get DPW or to
Yep.
install it.
They did price out 6x6 posts, but I don't think we need.
Depends how heavy it is,
That's a
I
lot.
suppose. It's really would be the weight. Did they recommend one or the other?
No.
4x4 is relatively small.
Is it small? Do you, I don't, how heavy, do you remember how heavy
We
those
carry.
signs
I
are?
mean, we carry 4x6.
No, but the sign, like,
Oh,
how
the
heavy
sign
do you think
itself?
the sign is
The
going
signs
to be?
aren't very heavy because they're not made out of. They're made out of like a. I don't know what it is, like a foam board, maybe type of stuff
Oh, so
that they
4x4s would be fine.
carve into. It's not made out of wood or solid wood anyway. If
Okay.
it's not foam board, like I don't mean like it's
Yeah.
denser than like your foundation foam board
Yeah.
or whatever. But yeah, I was gonna say. I thought you were talking about the granite posts.
No, well,
Those are pretty heavy.
Those are heavy, yeah, those are heavy. But,
4x4 by 36.
I
'cause
think
that seems really long for a 4x4 post.
96 inches.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the 36-inch ones that we put in for property corners always seem really thin when they're 36 inches long. 6x6 is a substantial piece of granite, though.
No, these are just-
they-
these are
these
just
would be
pressure
pressure
treated.
treated.
These are just pressure treated posts.
Yeah, with PVC and cap.
Oh,
Yeah.
What is that? Are the other ones not pressure treated posts that, for the Shopmeyer?
Shopmeyer's on granite.
Post is a pole,
Isn't it granite?
It's like a metal pole, isn't it?
It's got a metal bracket that comes off the granite post, I
Oh,
thought.
yeah,
it?
right.
And then on the right-hand side of that property, we put a row of 6x6 by 96-inch granite posts
Mm.
that were set by a company. I can't remember what company that did that, but we hired a company to come in and put those in.
These are definitely pressure treated, right?
Yeah.
These ones?
Oh,
Yep,
I'm
it says
sorry,
that
I
on
thought
the
they were
invoice.
No, that's right, no.
It says that on the quote.
Mm.
Pressure treated posts with PVC and cap. So,
Maybe we should, well, if we want to do it, maybe we should approve a little bit more and ask them what they think would be a better size. I have no idea how high, it's really about the weight of the sign, do you think? Or how would it look with just two little skinny posts? I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's small, that's like not very big.
I know, it
For
might
a
look weird if
big
they're too
sign.
skinny.
True.
Because it's like the size of it's like as wide as a kiosk,
Yeah.
and those have 6x6 posts, which they must have
Wow.
6x6.
Mm.
6x6 would be 300.
300, so we're talking 2,100.
Yep.
Is that
That's not each, it's together.
Right.
Yeah.
in
total.
hardware to mount?
Mm.
I think you need like a bracket, like two brackets and
Mm.
some hardware. That's what I would think.
Did
What about the one out at it's a different material, totally different type of sign, but however it's held up, it's like that size. The one out on 152 at the
Like
Tuttle
Wigan,
Swamp.
Wigan has
Tuttle?
one. Wigan has one too.
Huh?
Yeah.
I noticed them.
Yeah. They both
It's got
have.
that flat board, but
Yep.
it's. I think the posts on. I don't remember how big those posts are, but it's a similar size sign.
I think those are 4x4s because it's actually they're listing a bit. It's really hard because of the frost heaves. Yeah, we should put some hardware into them.
Okay.
So what, for instance, what do you think of the idea of having a sign? I mean, it's pretty expensive, but is it worth, nice property. I think it's a really nice property, so.
It's basically a half mile from my house. I don't think I knew it was there for 5 years.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it seems worth
Melissa was
bringing
keeping it
eyes to it.
It's her favorite.
Just hiding
It
it.
was my favorite.
Yeah. Every time I mention it to someone, they say, "Where's that?"
Yeah,
And I tell
exactly.
Yeah, everyone's driven by it. It's just it's there.
It's really, once
Hiding
you
in
go,
plain sight.
it's a beautiful
That's right.
trail. So we could add like another 100 for hardware. So I'd say 2,200. And assuming that DPW would install it.
Did you get that?
6x6. I think a 6x6 would be better. All right. Do you want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we get a sign for Piscassic River. So, setting aside, what did we say?
Up to 2,200.
2,200?
Spend up to.
Up to 2,200.
Okay. I have a second.
Were you going with the larger posts?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
The larger sign, or the.
Yeah, the larger one. I think it looks. It looks better, don't you think? With the
I like the bump.
the bottom one is
Yeah,
it
I like the
just
bottom one.
aesthetically seems like it looks a little better.
Public input.
Hold it up.
I don't know,
The difference in price
I'm
was
the only
what.
driver in my household, so I'm very rarely rubbernecking to read signs on either
Well, the
side.
good thing about this is that you wouldn't have to rubberneck for this.
Yeah,
sign.
it's so
Pretty
big.
much just gonna smack you in the face.
Mm.
And there's in that little bit's an easement, right? Where
Right.
that
So
goes, and there's no limit. There's no like size restriction for a sign or something like that. I just
I don't
asking the
think so.
question before we.
yeah, yeah. We have you go in the driveway is the 50-foot right of way that we have the easement across, and then as soon as the driveway turns, we have that 50 feet all the way back.
Right.
And then the parking area. So there's a line of cedars and the fence, so this would go in front of the cedars, so it's actually a perfect backdrop. It'll stand out nicely. Okay, we need a second for the motion? Second, okay. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. No opposed? Great. All right, you want to pursue that?
Excellent.
Good. Nice, thanks for doing that research.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So a third thing is, as I discussed, we did shore up the bridge, but it really needs to be rebuilt. I think we chatted about that before. And I went out there, my husband and I went out there and did some measurements. If we wanted to do a pressure-treated bridge instead, we've done a bunch of these in other places for Selt and Durham. So you basically take a pressure-treated sill on each end where there's the rotted sill. And then we thought 4x4 stringers, like 3 4x4 stringers, about 10 feet. And then pressure treated decking, so it goes sideways. So when you go on it, you're not skidding along a straightaway. It's a little bit better pressure, or it's not as slippery. So with those materials and GRK screws, which we like to use, it's we estimated about $220. 220. We could say up to 250. And we'd be willing to build this if anybody else wanted to help in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I'll help.
Do you want to do that if we wanted to go ahead and do that? Be nice to get it done before winter because it's a little dicey there with
Yeah.
the slipperiness of it currently.
Similar to the ones, say, on the greenway that they put in.
Exactly, yeah, we built some of those, so yeah, that same style. And then you have
A little edge.
yeah, you get a 2x4 pressure treated, so you do a bumper, and so I mean this is a pretty short, but yeah, so we budgeted for that. So if we could maybe say up to $250 for that material, that would be good. I'll make that motion. You have a second? Okay, Melissa, thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Awesome. All right, so I will email out some times and Dave look at the weather
Yeah.
and see. It would probably be
Great.
during the week if that's okay with
Yeah.
people.
Should take a before and after picture and send it to Jim Bergeron. You can share it with his son when we built that
Oh, that
trail
one?
and put
It's-
it all in years
yeah.
ago. Like, and,
Cool.
That trail
it
is-
was his son's Eagle Scout project,
Mm,
and I remember putting that bridge in
yeah,
back.
it's an incredible
It's
trail.
still a bit of a beast. It just
Yeah.
is loose, you know?
Yeah.
It really is a huge,
Yeah.
Yeah, we put those
pieces
in
of
the
wood.
pickup truck. and
Yeah,
drove
and
them
it's
out
just the
there.
under.
Yeah.
Yeah, what happens is the under stuff starts to rot, so
Yeah.
it gets unstable.
Yes, it's just pine.
Excellent. Okay. I think anything else for Skassic or Lizelle? Yeah. Okay, Sliding Rock. So Bart and I met with LRAC back several weeks ago with their main committee, just to let them know on some of the things we're doing in Newmarket since they have a grant program and they're obviously interested in Newmarket. It was a small group, so I don't think they had a quorum, but they seem interested and appreciative of our presentation. And then we specifically talked about the Sliding Rock projects that we wanted to do and that we were submitting a grant. And I had actually submitted this grant to them before the meeting, so they had seen it. And then they had a couple, we discussed the beach and the boat launch, because, the whole question about do we really need to do anything, and I didn't know, and, we don't really know. So there were supposed to be a few of them. We were going to go out and look at it, which we did. There was only one person, Grace, forget her last name. She's on the, she works for DES on dams, so she kind of knows a little bit about that kind of stuff. And we kind of looked at it, we just, what's that?
Let her good.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So we sort of agreed that, we don't need to do anything right now with the beach, and maybe we should, if we ever get another really big flood, to see what happens there and if there's any issues with the beach. But what we did talk about, so we talked about the hazard trees, which are in the grant, the hazard trees, new interpretive panels, looking at the accessibility of the trail, adding another kayak storage, and then instead of doing any assessment of the beach and the boat launch right now, the other boats are still there, the private boats are still out there, and there's a lot of erosion right there where they're sitting, and so because people just drag them over that little lip. And what we talked about was maybe putting some, obviously the boats will go away, and putting some fencing in that area to keep people from dragging that way, instead of, you could still come around where the town boats are, the rec department boats are, and funnel everybody that way, so they're not just dragging it over that lip where there's a lot of erosion. So I put a little bit of funding in the grant for that, which is like some stakes and some sort of inexpensive fencing. So it was submitted for, we asked for $6,325, $6,325. And I think their grants committee was meeting last night, possibly. Not sure. And then the full committee meets, I think, next week. So we should know if they're going to fund it. They seem, I'm optimistic. I think it fits within there. Yeah, unfortunately he wasn't at the other meeting, but he knows all about this, so hopefully he'll put in the word that this is a good project. So we'll,
Great.
yeah, so
Thank you.
hopefully that'll go through. Should be good. Wigan Farm, I put that in there. The Rockingham County Conservation District finished the invasive work. So that's done. And then the town mowed the field as normal in October, and I noticed that they also brush hogged or mowed the upper area around the gate, which we had done the Bronto work in, which actually was excellent because by mowing it, they're keeping down the invasives from coming back in there. And then they also mowed where we did the invasive treatment in the old field, so across the stone wall. So they went in and cut down all the stuff that was dying, which was like really good. And I don't think we had talked to them about doing that. So they made that decision on their own, and I think it was actually a good one. So I've thought about some things. I think if we had a work day next spring, that we could do some follow-up mechanical work on the invasives, and there's some signposts that need to be they're loose, reset, and there's some other posts that can come out. Anyway, just a bunch of things we could do like we did with Piscasset Glazell, have a work day in spring, maybe in April. Yeah, so that's Wigan Farm. Anybody have any other properties, things that they think of that we need to discuss at this point?
Yeah, actually, there's something I've been remiss in bringing up twice now. Something that got brought up during the riverfront meetings is just the amount of cigarette butts that seem to end up at Shanda Park. And obviously, like, we're not going to have someone down there, like, enforcing people picking up cigarette butts, but there also isn't even a place to put them. Like, just like a plastic place where you can put the butt.
Yeah.
I was wondering if that's something that we may want to consider, because it doesn't seem like a huge effort to ask people not to just throw them on the ground, but also we're not giving them a ready alternative either. I've done no research on that, obviously, but it seems like something that may be worth a short expenditure to maybe get some of them off the ground and into receptacle.
Yeah, we could maybe talk to Rick, because when they pick up the trash, they could
I mean, even if they
pick
just
up
have an extra one
he might,
somewhere else.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea. I mean, yeah. Sure. Do you want us to approve some funding, or what would you think would be useful?
Not knowing what they cost, I'm not sure how much I would ask for.
You want to do the research, and then because it's getting colder, there'll probably be fewer people.
Yeah, I
You
can
could always
try to
get it put out in.
figure that out.
Yeah. I mean, we could say if it's
The mill
if it's
has some. I just noticed the other day in front of the mill. They're the ones with the bucket on the bottom and the really tall, thin
that's kind of all I
thing.
was thinking.
Yeah, they're outside the door near the mill along Main Street there.
well, maybe we should just make a motion if it's up to $100. It probably isn't anywhere near that, but I have no idea. Seems all right?
Appropriate.
Yeah. All right, I'll make that motion. We can expend up to $100
Second.
for that. All in favor? All right, Sam. You can figure that out?
Yeah.
Great.
Got it there.
Thank you.
So you said the mill has one on each side of the,
There's just one. I noticed the other day that, when you're walking around, like in front of the restaurant there, the southern thing, there's just one in front of one of the doors.
Okay, I think I just had other. If anybody else had anything else to bring up? All right, motion to adjourn then, I guess. All in favor? Aye?
anybody second that?
Oh,
Second.
pick somebody.
Second. Pick someone.
Lightning fast, that's me.
What is your schedule look like?